You're a vulture. People that go and buy people's storage unit at auction are vultures. They're leeches. They're horrible people. I don't know how anybody can live with themselves that does this. I mean, they should just be ashamed of themselves. I mean, how can these poor people? I mean, they get behind on their bills. They don't have the money, and then their stuff just gets sold, and then other people just rummage through it, and then just sell off all their personal belongings like it's nothing. I mean, that's horrible. How can anybody do this? How can anybody live with themselves? I mean, these people, it's their stuff, and you're just gonna just go through it and sell it, and you're gonna throw all their stuff away. Throw their pictures away, and I just don't understand. It's just horrible. And there's tons of people out here buying these units and selling the stuff and taking it to the flea market and all that kind of stuff and just spreading people's personal life out there for everyone to see. And it's really, really bad. Just can't believe people are doing it. And if you're one of those people, then, I don't know how you deal with it. I don't know how, you can live with your conscience, all day long telling that you're a leech, that you're a vulture. I just don't know how you do it. But I'm actually one of those people. I buy storage units that come up for auction and I resell the items for profit, and that's how I make a living. That's how I pay my bills. I've been doing it for years and years, and no, I don't feel bad about it at all. The people that lose their units, first off, they made an agreement with the storage facility. When you go in there, you fill out all the paperwork and you say, I'm going to pay X amount of dollars a month for X amount of space of storage. I'm going to put my personal belongings into this company or this, individual on a mom and pops. I'm going to put it into their private property and use their space, and they're going to let me use the space in exchange for whatever the monthly fee is. And it's a pretty easy deal. Storage facilities all over the country and all over the place. I mean, there's facilities that have 1,000 units, 2,000 units. And most of the time, every month, they might auction off one or two or three out of all those units. So the majority of people, they just pay their bills and go on with it. But then sometimes life happens, like with anything. Just like, with your house. People get behind on their house payment. And eventually, at some point, people have their house foreclosed on because they can't hold up their end of the agreement. People get behind on their car payment. And at some point, the repo man comes and he takes the car back because they can't hold up their end of the agreement. That's life. I mean, yeah, it's sad at times when it happens to somebody, but that's life. If you can't hold up your end of the agreement, the company or the individual that loan you that money, they still need that money because they either took a loan out themselves to give you that money, or they gave you money that they had saved or wherever the company had built up that capital, and they need the money back. I mean, that's, if you don't give them the money and you keep the stuff, it's stealing. But when it comes to these storage units, okay, first off, at least here in the state of Georgia, I know from state to state it can vary a little bit, but here in the state of Georgia where I'm at, it has to be at least 3 months behind before they'll ever auction off a unit. Some facilities go way, way longer than that. Some facilities, they don't have an auction, but once a year. Some of these people are a year or more late. Also, okay, so you got to be that far behind. Then they don't just sell it like that, just up one day and open the door and sell your stuff. They have to send certified letters in the mail, certified letter that makes sure that it gets to the person. They send certified letters. They send regular letters also. Then they're going to call you over and over and over again. I've been there in the office like 30 minutes before, and they're calling. They're trying to get this person to come and pay. Also, besides the regular letters and all that stuff, they have to post the auction listing with the unit number and everything in the legal organ, which would be for whatever county or city you're in. That is the newspaper that all of the legal announcements are in. Foreclosures, any kind of bank-owned sales, whatever the case is. The storage auction, it's posted there. So they do everything they can to try to let you know that this stuff's gonna get sold, and so there's no mistaking whether. And they call and they call and they call. They want you to pay. Their business is renting units. It's like if you're at least 3 months behind, then they haven't gotten any money from you in that long. So if your rent's $100 a month, you're at least $300 behind than fees or whatever. The unit might not even go for $300. A lot of times a unit will go for $10, $5, $1, $100 maybe. So they're not wanting to have auctions because they're not going to recoup all their money. Then they have to deal with the angry customers or people threatening to sue them, even though it's a legal process. As long as they do it correctly, they don't want to deal with that. They want you to just pay for your unit, rent the unit, store the stuff, and that's how their business works. They're not wanting to sell your stuff. But it happens. At some point, they've got to sell it. At some point, if you're not paying, they got to sell it. Or else all these facilities would have all these units there not getting paid for. But they still have to pay for electricity. They still have to pay for taxes. They have to pay for insurance. They have to pay the payroll for the people that work there. There's so much stuff that goes into that stuff still keeps coming in. Even if it's a big corporation, they still have to pay all this stuff. So at some point, they've got to get your stuff out of there to get a paying customer in. So the auction, that's the best way. They get fair market value, and then the person cleans it out. I get a good deal on stuff, and I clean it out. So the advantage for me is getting the stuff to sell. The advantage for them is recouping some of their money. Every now and then they do recoup all of it, and getting the stuff removed so they can move on with their regular business and not have to keep calling and mailing letters and begging somebody to come and make their payment. But so that's the thing. It's not just an overnight, quick, whatever, that kind of thing. Now, yeah, every now and then there is a crazy story where they accidentally sell the wrong, whatever. I've bought people's units where it ended up being the wrong unit, and they called me later on, but it was a point where it's like, it's all sold. When we get that stuff back, we start putting stuff out immediately as soon as we get it back to our store. So if they call me a week later or 2 weeks later, it's kind of a done deal at that point. So that does happen every now and then in a tiny percentage. Those are mistakes, but that's not the norm. Also, if people call up, if they'll answer their phone and say, I'm trying to make the payment, I'm struggling here, I've got this going on, I've been in the hospital. Most facilities will let you make payment arrangements. They'll let you pay a tiny amount or whatever the case is. They'll make arrangements. I've seen them make crazy arrangements where the people owed over $1,000 and they let them pay $100 to not get auctioned off, even though it was going to get auctioned off eventually because they were just never going to catch up because they're so deep in the hole. But I've seen them do that. Also, all they have to do is they can ask for their personals. If they know they can't pay and it's going to get auctioned off, can I please have my pictures? Can I please have my flag of my granddad who was, in the military and he has the folded flag in there? Can I please have that stuff? Now, if it's like, can I please have my bedroom set? Can I please have my TV and all that stuff? Some buyers might give it back to them, but most of the time it's like, I've already paid. I spent my time, my gas, my energy. I paid. I've moved this stuff. Most of the time, it's not happening as far as just giving it back. But as far as personals, pretty much everybody has no problem with that at all. Sometimes though, I've had personals and nobody ever came back to get them. The office didn't even want them because they're like, I can't get a hold of these people. I've found people's ashes in there, taken them to the office to give to them, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy that they don't want them, but I give them to them anyways because they don't know what they're going to do with them because they can't get these people to answer the phone. They haven't heard from them in months and months or sometimes years when they're selling these things. But so you can make arrangements. You can ask for your personals. Sometimes they'll even let you show up to bid or a family member show up and bid. And I've seen that happen before. The person comes to bid, everybody finds out, and I've seen a couple of things happen when there used to be live auctions. Everybody found out, and either nobody bid and they let them get it for like $1 or $5 or $10, or B, I've seen people where one person says, I'm going to bid anyway. I've seen people bid and win it to them and then just give it to them because the people looked nice and honest, all that. But then I've seen people that were there that you could tell that they were just conniving and stuff, and they were manipulating people and everything. And I've seen people like crying when their units are being auctioned off, and then as soon as the auction's over and they find out that somebody's going to give it to them, the tears just like literally, you can tell it was fake. But I've seen people really cry, like devastated crying, because their stuff was getting auctioned off right there in front of them. That's why most places wouldn't let the person be there at the auction, because that was kind of crazy and people get mad and all that. But I've seen many people give the units back to them, but pretty much everybody will give them their pictures, their birth certificates, degrees, whatever, any kind of personal stuff like that. It's gonna, people will give that stuff back. And another thing is, sometimes these people, this actually happens a lot. They just disappear. Literally, people in the office are like, we haven't heard from these people in forever. They just literally just disappear. Sometimes they just don't want it. Sometimes they answer the phone, they're like, I don't want it. I live in, I'm here in Georgia. I live in California now. Just sell it. I don't want it. I'm never coming back. That happens. Sometimes, people die. That's happened a lot of times. The person dies. They don't have any kind of good. They either don't have anybody in their family or a friend or whatever, literally had nobody to give a phone number to, or they give a fake phone number and nobody can find anybody that's related to them or whatever. So they try and try and try and they can't get anybody. Or they get a hold of one of the kids, adult kids, and the kid's like, I don't want it. I don't want their stuff. It happens many times. I've gotten units where it's like, yeah, the son just said he didn't want it. He's already got stuff from their house or whatever, but he doesn't want all this stuff. Happens all the time. And another thing, people go to jail and then they lose their stuff. They're in jail and they can't pay it, and people in the family are like, I'm not paying that, and they're in jail. That's their problem. And they lose their unit. And you can't get it back to them because they're in jail. The family doesn't want it anyways because they didn't want to pay for it anyways, because they're in jail. They made bad decisions. That's their problem. So there's a lot of reasons that happens, and a lot of those reasons aren't just that the person was trying to pay and they couldn't come up with the money. It does happen some, but unfortunately, it just happens. But a lot of people, they're just like, just the whole concept of selling someone's stuff, when they had something bad happen in their life, bad circumstances, and then I'm taking advantage of it. It's like, the stuff's got to go somewhere. So, and somebody's got to do it. It could just all get thrown away, but that's just the thing we're doing. We're selling it. But there's a lot of things in life I don't think a lot of people realize when they're getting a good deal on something, that it was because something bad happened, somebody made a mistake, whatever the case was. Like when you go to a used car lot, a lot of those cars are going to be repos. Oh, I got a good deal, so you bought a repo. It was repoed back from somebody. They had their car taken away. Houses, same thing. I don't hear too many people complaining when they get a good deal because it was a foreclosure. It's like those people had their home taken away, but they weren't paying. A lot of times it's because they bit off more than they could chew, or life just throws crazy stuff at them. It's sad, yeah, but they can't keep living in a house that they can't pay for. It's just the way it is. And then like you take Ross, TJ Maxx, those kind of places, a lot of those items in there, they're overstocked. Somebody made a mistake when they were, at the plant, when they were running these items, down the assembly line. Somebody made a mistake and all the pockets were on the wrong side. And they ran hundreds of them or thousands of them, and it costs that company money. Sometimes it's a big company, sometimes it's a small company. Sometimes a small company puts a hurting on them. I'm guarantee you there's people that mistake cost them their jobs because they made a mistake, cost the company money, and they fired them. I guarantee you. Or they ordered like, oh, this is the new style. We're gonna order, 1,000,000 of this right here, and they get it in the store and it's a dud. Nobody wants it. Nobody buys it. So they have tons of them. They have to send it to TJ Maxx. They send it to Ross. That's where a lot of that stuff comes from in stores like that, is mistakes by buyers and companies, manufacturers. And so that's a hardship on that company. It's a hardship on people that potentially lost their jobs or had hours cut, everything, but people don't think about all that stuff. because they're getting a deal, and they're getting a deal, on stuff. So they're just happy when they're getting a deal, but for some reason they don't think of where it came from, how it happened, and all that kind of stuff. But in their mind, storage unit is something different to them, because I don't know. I guess because they know, maybe a lot of them lost a unit or something like that. It happened to them, so it hits home personal. I don't know, but I get, people calling. I've had people call me a leech. Somebody, call me a vulture. I've had, all kinds of stuff like that over the years out at live auctions, and people saying stuff like that to me and other people, and whatever. I mean, it's just the way it is. We're doing a service to the storage company. Like I said, they don't want to do it. They want you to pay your bills. They want to run a storage company, but that's not how it works all the time. People don't pay their bills, so it's like, I don't understand why people can't get that concept. It's like, they can't just store people's stuff infinitely, for free. At some point, they've got to get rid of the people's stuff, and like I said, most of them, they just can't get in contact with them, but they got to give them some money too. Oh, that's another thing. I know a lot of the companies were doing like deals where the person owed $800. They were calling them up and saying, hey, if you can come up with $100 in the next day or two, you can come pay the $100, get all your stuff out, because, and let's be done with it. And they were doing that, and some people were taking advantage of some, and some were. But one thing that was happening with that is people would come, they would get what they wanted out of there, they would leave all their trash behind, so then the storage facility was still stuck with a unit full of a bunch of junk, dirty mattresses and all this stuff. And there was one company that kept trying to auction these off, and we're looking like, why does everything in here looks like it's been thrown around, and all that's left in there is broken, dirty, ugly stuff. Come to find out, they were letting the customers come back to get the stuff. They were supposed to be getting it all, but they were just picking what they wanted out of there and leaving the rest, and trying to get us to bid on it. But so many of those units weren't getting bid on, so they were having to either have a maintenance person clean it out or hire a clean out company to come and do that. So, you can say, oh, these are big companies, whatever. It's like, some of them are big companies, but big companies go out of business all the time when they ain't making enough money, and that affects a lot of people. How many big corporations and big companies over the last few years have gone, or either down to, they're just like a shadow of their former self. They were huge, and now they're this tiny little thing hanging on. But that's because, I don't care how big you are, if the money starts dwindling down, then that kind of stuff happens. And even if you're a big storage company, if you just started letting all these units sitting there and you didn't have it coming in, that's what's going to happen. And then a lot of them are mom and pops, where they don't have a lot of leeway, and they got to have that money coming in to pay the overhead. So it's a lot of people affected. It's bad all the way around, but it's just a fact of life. Just like repoing cars, just like foreclosing houses, just like the stuff that ends up at a lot of discount stores, but people just don't think about it. They just get mad and emotional at the moment that somebody's getting somebody's stuff and selling it, but they don't know all the details. So, like I said, storage companies don't want to do it. We try to help them out. We'll give you your personals back, all that kind of stuff. We'll work with you the best that we can, but, overall, most of the time, once it's sold and I've already done the work to haul it back, it's like, it's a done deal at that point. I'm selling it. I'm putting it in my sales channels, and it's a done deal at that point. But I don't feel bad. Sometimes I do feel sad, because I'm like, what happened to these people that had some really nice stuff, some interesting stuff, some family history stuff, and nobody knows where they're at. But I don't feel bad as far as feeling like I'm a vulture and whatever, that kind of thing. So anybody out there buying, if you're feeling like, oh, I feel bad, am I a bad person for doing this? No, you're not a bad person for doing it. It's just the way that it has to be, and nobody should feel bad. And if anybody tries to make you feel bad or guilty, then just tell them to get over it, and maybe try to explain to them some of the details, because sometimes they just don't know. But it's just a fact of life, and it's nothing that's unethical or bad. It's just business. It's just life. That's pretty much it for this video. For all the vultures out there, all the people that want to be vultures, or all the people that think we're vultures, here you go. But I got lots more videos coming. We got lots more storage units that I'm buying. I've got a really, really good one coming up. We're still working on it. It's going to be probably about a week from now. So hit the like button, leave me a comment about this one, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and we're going to keep putting out that content. All right, y'all have a good one.